Hello, hello, hello. All right, everyone. It is week 13, and we're getting ready to go for another start, sit, and DFS lineup settings. Okay, today we got Ricky on, repping TDS. Okay, shout out to Spotlight Sports. We were on earlier answering some questions, getting you guys ready for this week's games. How you feeling this week, Ricky?
Good. In few of my leagues, four of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a playoff spot, which is always the first step and always feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of other ones. One, I'm officially eliminated. That happened last week. And then the other two, if I win one, and I think, which I have to beat, they lose. I mean, I get in, and then another one based on points. So right now, a lot what has to do with this week is looking forward, whether you clinched and setting yourself up, whether you have the bye or the following week, and also is if right now if you're still fighting for a spot, this is the last week to do it.
Yeah, this is a big week for a lot of people right now. This is, like you said, in most instances, the week before the playoffs. Week 14 is when it usually kicks off, and I think one thing that I'm looking forward to is hoping that after this we can see some relief from some injuries. I saw today that because two guys that I have in a league that I'm facing Ricky in is I have a Christian McCaffrey who's hurt and on bye this week, so it's a double whammy, and James Conner, right?
Yeah.
James Conner today was or last night was said that he's cleared from the COVID list. He's eligible to come off, but he's considered unlikely to play. And Benny Snell Jr. is going to be the lead back this week for the Steelers. Right. So hopefully he can come back after that. I know that's what a lot of us are looking for. But that's something definitely to note as James Conner owners, that your guy may be coming back soon. With James Conner being in the being out of the lineup last week, the Steelers threw a lot versus the Ravens. They threw almost 50 times with Ben Roethlisberger, which is great for PPR because all the wide receivers are getting catches and it's keeping everyone active.
And Snell did well as well.
Yeah, Snell did pretty well as well, and he didn't even get that many carries. So it's definitely interesting to see how that breaks down. And on Monday, who are the Steelers playing again?
Monday they are playing Washington, which is a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the record, you're thinking, hey, Pittsburgh's going to easily win this. They'll probably score. But Washington's defense is a little underrated. They're a good defense. They've been playing well. It looks like Alex Smith finally is getting into the groove of it, and he's doing what Alex Smith does, which is checking down, moving the ball, moving the chains, getting them in the red zone. So I think it's going to be closer than most people think. I also think, Ben's going to pass. I mean, I think Conner not being that, I don't think they're comfortable handing off the ball 15, 20 times to Snell throughout the game. If you see most of the time Snell got his touchdowns right when Conner did all the work, or they got to the red zone and then they would give Snell the ball.
He's definitely becoming short
yardage. You do see him getting more catches. He did well last year. Last week. So if you got Snell and Conner's not, this is a really good,
definitely good matchup.
A really good opportunity for you, that team, to put him in the lineup. I have him, but he was picked up last week. But if you have him again, that's another week.
And that Washington
moving forward with Conner, because he does have somewhat of an injury-prone history, right?
But I mean, this is COVID, so it's a little bit different. So we're hoping that he comes back, right as rain, and that's something definitely that we want to try to hope for. Another player that I saw that was active today is going to be Tua. Tua is coming in active, so that means he will be starting over Ryan Fitzpatrick. For what that means to you, Devontae Parker owners,
that hurts difference. That's what I was going to say. That Parker gets hit a lot.
When he's playing with Fitzpatrick, Parker is about a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2.
Yep.
With Tua, he's a flex. Maybe you could keep him in. Maybe you want to play someone else because it's not.
With Tua, it's a real toss-up. If you have a better option, I would start. I don't know. I was talking about Pittman Jr. If I had him, I would start him.
Yeah. Someone else that I'm looking at that I might start over him is oh my god, I just eluded me. I'm sorry, guys. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, wow, I just
You
drew a
got
blank.
it. What's going on? You got it. You don't got it.
So okay, Julio Jones is also
Oh
out.
yeah.
I mean, he's in. Julio Jones is in.
Yes,
Todd
he's
Gurley's in.
100%
Allen
healthy. He felt
Robinson's in.
healthier than before.
Oh,
I
now I
believe.
remember what I was going to say. Miles Gaskin is active this week. So over there for the Dolphins, that's a huge difference because you have Salvin Ahmed that's inactive, and you have Matt Breida who's going on the COVID list.
Yeah.
So you're going to have an opportunity right there with Miles Gaskin that he's going to step in immediately and become a workhorse for your team.
And he
So
was doing well right before he got, he
Yep.
got hurt.
Yep. He's someone that I definitely trust. In FanDuel, I know that he was going for about like 6,000. So he's someone that I'm actually starting in my FanDuel lineups today. He's someone that I think that's very attractive with that matchup as well, because the Dolphins are playing. Let me just double check it. They weren't playing a great team.
Oh, the Dolphins, they're playing
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
So they're playing
by like 10 or 11.
Yeah, and I think this is a big game for Tua as well. I thought that they would have maybe put Fitzpatrick in over him just because this is a game that you really want to get. If you're trying to make the playoffs, and this is a very gettable game with no Joe Burrow for Cincinnati. But I think it's also a good game where you can test out Tua and see if he actually has what it takes for this run, because this team is right on the verge of the playoffs.
Yeah,
and I don't know if Tua doesn't really play great this week, it may be a situation where they do go back to Fitzpatrick because he may give him a better chance to win.
I get what you're saying, and Flores has done what he wants to do all year long, which he deserves it because everything he pretty much has done worked out. I love Flores, but that would be hard for me to think that if Tua comes in and let's say beats Cincy, and then who's he? Because the schedule gets a little tougher, no?
Now we are seeing after Cincinnati, they're going to play Kansas City, New England, and Las Vegas.
So again, it gets a little more tougher. Kansas City's a hard one. Vegas is going to
New England
hard.
and Vegas are gettable.
Yeah,
those games are gettable.
New England definitely is, right. Miami looks like the better team, even though New England. Listen, it's Bill Belichick. They've been winning games. They've been hanging in there. They're trying to stay in the fight. But again, to me, both those games are winnable. To me, Kansas City, they're going to lose. If they win, that's a big upset. But again, to me, New England, I think they're going to win New England. And Vegas, where they're going to Vegas?
Yes, they are at Vegas. Yes,
that's kind of a toss-up.
Well, with the way the Raiders have been playing, they just lost to the Falcons. And Derek Carr really hasn't been playing that well on offense.
And Jacobs is not. I think the Rams, they face who do they face this week? They face
Hold on a second. The Rams are facing the Arizona Cardinals.
No, the Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders are facing the Jets this week.
The Jets this week. So, the only thing about that right now is that the Jets are not playing. Look, they're going to lose. We all know that kind of, but it's not as simple as hey, Raiders just going in there, like you said. Carr's not playing well. There's no Jacobs. Booker, if you get him, we have a decision to make. Booker was another big one to pick up this week because Jacobs, they said pretty early that he was not going to play this week.
And I think the first question for start sit goes to Ricky. Who would you start? Naheem Hines, Todd Gurley, or Booker? Pick two.
All right. So this is our team, guys. So let the people know that basically this is our team that we have, that we co-manage. There's no bye, right? There's no bye, right, Steve? Everyone face each other right away. So we start the playoffs, even though we're, I think, 2. We start the playoffs right away.
18 make it.
Yeah. And there's 14, right? 14-team league.
It's a 12-team league. 18 make it. No bye week. Everyone just goes straight through. It's really one of those leagues where you just make the playoffs and you see what happens. You get hot.
So look, we made the playoffs already, but we're now trying to kind of get organized and see what we're going to do forward. And this is what you try to do when you already made the playoffs. You try to plan ahead. Look, we're going to go.
Well, this is actually for this week.
Yeah.
For right now, for this week, who?
No. That's what I'm saying. But I'm just letting the audience know what we're thinking. Yeah. Because we want to be able to set our lineup this week and what it is going to be next week and moving forward. unless something changes. So I'm definitely going to go with, again, Hines. I'm going to go with Booker.
And bench Gurley. That's where the crux comes in, because Gurley.
Because to me, this is the thing. Ertz is not playing, right?
Ertz is playing, I believe.
Oh, he is playing.
Ertz is going to be active. Yes.
Ooh, that hurts Dallas.
Well, I don't know. The way it was shaping out before even Ertz came back from his injury, Dallas Goedert was getting the most of the snaps, and targets as well.
But I mean, that kind of does hurt him. But again, I you know me, I've been wanting to put Dallas in the lineup, so we're gonna leave Dallas in there.
We started him for his one bad game.
Huh?
We started him for his one bad game.
I know, for the one bad game. That's what happens. Yep. And so to me, yes, it's going to be Hines. I think we have to sit Gurley. Right? Gurley's not playing though, is he?
Gurley is playing, but would you play Gurley over Booker this week when Booker is facing the Jets?
No, that's what I'm saying.
I think Booker's the safe one this week.
Right.
I think it comes down to Hines and Gurley.
The only thing I'm worried about Hines is Taylor is back. I know you don't think, but I mean, just the game before he got COVID, he was getting a lot of the carries. Hines didn't do horrible last week, right? What would he do?
Hines last week, I'll tell you right now. Okay, hold on. Nyheim Hines, he had 5 rushing attempts for 10 rushing attempts for 29 yards, but I don't see his passing. That's why I don't like this version here.
So again, let me pull it up. I'm debating about Gurley and Hines.
Hold on, let me get his full numbers here. The desktop is much worse than the mobile. All right, so last week he had 10 rushes for 29 yards and 8 catches for 66 yards. So he had a lot of work in the passing game, and in PPR leagues, the 8 catches count for 8 points off the bat. So that's even more than a touchdown. So his catching upside gives him a lot of opportunity to be a really solid player for your fantasy teams.
Like I said, yeah, it's between Hines and Gurley. I would, I'm hesitant about Gurley because he is the starter, right? They are saying he's going to play. Mm-hmm. Normally, you go with the guy you drafted.
Smith also has been looking halfway or pretty good in that lineup.
It looks like a completely different offense.
But Gurley before, let's just take a look here, just so we can break it down. Gurley before that, he had 3, 15, 10, 23, 9. So he's pretty solid, but
he's pretty solid.
He's also
touchdown dependent. He has to get a touchdown.
Yeah, but the last time he faced New Orleans, he had 3 points. So he does have a history and he's facing New Orleans this week. So he does have a history in this matchup.
I mean, like I said, I don't mind putting Hines over Gurley.
Yeah, because in the next couple of weeks, he has the Chargers next week. He has Tampa Bay the week after that, and then Kansas City the week after that. So when we're looking at his,
Steve, your mic is off, like it's last static.
Oh, is it? Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Well, Steve's trying to fix this. So like you were saying, guys, out there, we're gonna go with Hines just for the catches. Like Steve said, that's 8 points right off the bat, and that's I do expect him to get anywhere from 5 to 6, 7, catches. Hopefully he gets that touchdown. That's what we're hoping for. But again, moving forward, if for whatever reason Hines doesn't do that well this week and Gurley does, that's another decision we're gonna have to do moving forward the following week for the playoff game.
I think one of the biggest things that I'm going to be looking at is the Jonathan Taylor workload versus the Nyheim Hines workload, because as we go forward, if we start seeing it the way it continuously plays, where Nyheim Hines is getting most of the passing down,
you're still the thing, Matt. You can't hear us. Yeah, can't hear you.
Okay. Keep going.
All right. So now going guys forward. Other pickups I know Steve's going to go into draft fantasy, DraftKings, but I'm not someone that knows that. What we're going to do is we're also thinking about, again, moving forward defenses. who you're going to have in the future. Me and him, we were debating. We actually were looking at the Rams defense. We're looking at their schedule. Again, it was for this same league. What we're going to do is basically we wanted the Rams because they have the Jets, and I believe they have I forgot the other team, but they have the Jets and the second team. I was also looking at Buffalo because in championship week 15, hopefully that we're there. They do face Denver. Denver's been a really just bad team, no offense at all. So that's another thing we were looking at basically is the defenses and what we're going to be able to do. Another one was, I believe it was Detroit. But again, back to the Buffalo one quickly. They do face Pittsburgh week 14. So that was kind of, I know Steve was hesitant about that. Me, I'm not that I'm not worried because Pittsburgh can't score, but I'm not like, oh, we definitely can't start them. Like, to me, Pittsburgh is, a team that hasn't faced maybe really great teams or a really good defense like Buffalo. And to me, Buffalo could definitely get sacks, points, turnovers in that game. Let's go on, Steve. You're back?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me better?
No.
No?
It's still bad. It's still static. You just can't hear. It's like there's interference.
Oh, okay. Now that's interesting.
Now,
All right. Just keep going, I guess.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's good now?
No, you're good now.
Okay. But yeah, so once we have that done, another player that I think I'm going to be looking at is Frank Gore. Frank Gore's workload this week is going to be something I think that's very interesting, especially considering Frank Gore isn't owned in a lot of leagues, or he may be in your waiver wire that you could look at for going forward. Just because now, since Perrine has been out of the lineup or been put on the injured reserve, Gore has the opportunity to fully take over that backfield, and there's really nobody else on the roster who I really see getting the bulk of the carries going forward. You're a Jets fan. You pretty much know that. Who will they really have behind Gore at the running back position?
I forgot who they picked up. But no, they don't have anyone. Gore. The good thing about Gore is he hasn't played that much. I mean, he has, but he hasn't. The offense has been horrible, so it's not like at the end of the games they're throwing the ball. That's the only thing that worries me about Gore as well. But yeah, if you're, moving right now, a lot of times you get COVID, injuries happen, and he's not a bad fill-in. If you have to really, say, hey, I got to take a chance. I got to get maybe 10 points, 12. You're not looking Gore to get 20, 25. That's not what you're. But if you need someone to come in there, hey, not just give me a dud. Gore's definitely someone that it would be nice to pick up. You get 12 points for him. That's a really good maybe flex if you're in a 12-team league and again you have a couple of injuries or COVID happens and a couple of people go on the list.
Yep, and he definitely will have an opportunity for touchdowns in most cases too if the Jets get down there. So that's another bonus that you get with him. But yeah, he's not a bad end of the roster guy to have. No. Now, if we flip it over here, what I got for you guys is my FanDuel that I had set up. So this week, I'm going with a little bit more. How do you say it? Hardcore lineup. Okay, I'm throwing in a $22 one. It's a decent prize pool. I'll show you guys let me see if I can pull it up. Is this one? So this one is fun to enter, and the reason why I went in with it is just for the mere fact that I really do like the lineup, and I was like, it's worth it. So I went Ryan Tannehill versus Cleveland. Big word that I heard coming down now is that Denzel Ward is out from Cleveland. So I'm just really thinking that with that defense, which is really good versus the run, it's just going to open up Tannehill and AJ Brown to have a big game. Myles Gaskin, we were speaking about him earlier. He's going to be probably the main starting running back going for Miami today versus Cincinnati, which didn't do that well versus Wayne Gallman last week. And when you think about Myles Gaskin being a really solid play before before he went down with injury. And he's only at 5,500 for building your lineup with a budget team. I definitely love that guy. At running back, I have Aaron Jones from Green Bay versus that Philadelphia defense. Okay, I think Aaron Jones has a good possibility to really have a great game versus this team. Maybe last minute I sub him out if I have an inkling on something and go with a Carson, but for the most part, I do like Aaron Jones. And quick second, I do have a question here. So Joe Cox says, "Morning, boys. Should I play Sterling Shepard today or Marvin Jones Jr. with Galladay out?" I would lean toward Marvin Jones Jr. Since, like you said, Galladay is out, and also remember Daniel Jones is out this week, so I don't really know what you're gonna get with a Colt McCoy Sterling Shepard connection. So I'd shy away from that and go with Marvin Jones Jr. just because of that opportunity. Thanks for the question, Joe. And again, if you have any other questions as we get through the playoffs, make sure you come by and join us. We'll be doing this for the rest of the season, so we got you guys covered. Then next up, we also have Michael Pittman Jr. If you guys follow us on Instagram, this guy was our start of the week with the opportunity that he has. Last week, he had about 9 targets, even though he really didn't do much of the 9 targets. You have to expect that him and Rivers will get on a better get on page this week, and versus that secondary in Houston, which just lost Bradley Roby to the PED suspension, like Will Fuller.
Steve,
you
again the static. Yeah, the on your mic.
Okay. That's weird. All right. So then, I have Devontae Adams also here.
Steve, now you can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Yeah.
Wally says he can hear me though. Is it maybe your device?
It just real staticky, like real static. Let's see if we could just come back, guys. We'll try to come back.
Wally saying he can hear me though. Hold on. Let's just keep it for a second. And
now it's good.
Now it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then who else do I have? I have Brandon Cooks in here versus the Indianapolis Colts. Reason why I just go with Brandon Cooks here, I think just for the volume at 6,500, he's going to get a lot of the target share with Will Fuller being out. So I think that just gives him a good opportunity to be, really great. Dallas Goedert, I have a tight end. We were speaking about him earlier. He seems to be one of the favorite targets of Wentz.
Yeah.
And even though Wentz is going through his slide, he seems to rely on Dallas Goedert enough in order to get, good volume. And I definitely like him in this play. I think when you look at the tight ends that are available today, Kelsey isn't available for the main slate. So you're going to have Waller. You're going to have him. You're going to have TJ Hawkinson, Zach Ertz, Hayden Hurst. Those are some of the guys that I'm looking at the tight end spot for today. But honestly, I would say Goddard probably is the guy that I most likely lean on. Devontae Booker, we were speaking about him earlier versus the Jets. I think this is a really good matchup for a really good price. He's at 6,000 total, and he's going to be the main back versus the Jets, who aren't really a great defense, and with a team in Oakland that really doesn't push the ball downfield. They really like to run. They really like to pass the ball off, and he was almost in a split back situation with Jacobs. So before that, he was getting a decent workload and putting up good numbers as he was averaging about 5 yards per carry. So now with having him there and getting him more carries, I think he's definitely going to outproduce this 6,000 cost. And then we're rolling with the Las Vegas Raiders for your secondary. I mean, for your defense out here at 4,400. I know, but I was talking a lot about the Raiders possibly throwing up an unexpected win versus them, but I'm still going with them in DFS just because the Jets offense really is that bad. And I don't think anyone trusts them.
Pick from what you're telling me. No, we I mean, when we say expected to win, like they're more than likely expected to win. Like the Jets offense it's really none.
Yeah, I'm expecting maybe a couple of sacks, maybe an interception. Sam Darnold doesn't look as much as we can say before that the Jets offense was hampered because Sam Darnold didn't have weapons, and we saw that when Joe Flacco came in. He actually did some decent work with the guys there. He was pushing the ball downfield more. He was getting more big play opportunities, I feel like, than Sam Darnold normally does. And I think you saw Perriman start going off. Mims was getting some play. Crowder wasn't getting as much work, which was a little bit interesting to me. I do expect that Crowder now starts to get more of his workload back.
Well, I mean, I expected that last week, but Perriman ended up
getting more. And Mims has been playing pretty solid.
Yeah. So I mean, I actually think people have to look, or maybe if you can, again, if you're someone that can afford
Thank
it.
you, Dave. Thank you very much, man. And again, any questions you ever need, to stop by us,
Thanks,
and we
Dave.
got you guys covered.
But I said I'm thinking, um, for someone like to pick up Perryman,
Mhm.
to kind of maybe have him stashed in case Crowder gets hurt, or even again see how it goes again. If Darnold starts throwing to Perryman again this week, then they might have something moving forward, and maybe
Mhm.
you could get one decent player out of
Mhm.
the Jets offensively for fantasy.
Yeah, I think that that'll be something that'll be interesting to see, especially considering that there's going to be volume there. Someone's eventually going to have to do something
They
there,
have,
and that's
they
that's
have
the opportunity that a lot of people can probably get and pick up on. Is that sometimes in fantasy, it really doesn't matter your team or how good you are; it just matters how much you're going to get the ball and how you count stats. Like it's like in we were just talking about Hines. Hines had 10 carries for 29 yards, which is pedestrian, but
yeah,
then he had the 8 catches for 64 yards, which really buoyed his scoring and making him a safe option.
yeah,
And that's just because of the volume that's available to him at that position and the way they play their game. So that's
right.
something that you always got to be looking at when you're scoring. I mean, when you're looking at how you're going to get your scoring or what you want to get in a player. Those are the kind of situations which they don't always pan out to be the best, but usually that's the safer situation and definitely
And
helps you
also,
out.
people also have to understand when we talk a lot of times with starting players, we're not always going to tell you, like, we're not going to give you the, the Kyler Murray, or something of that, the Camaros when we're trying to give you where you could get some points because right now it's going to be tough moving
Mhm.
forward with injuries with this COVID list. You might have to start really digging
Oh
deep,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
again, you need players to give you
Mhm.
points, not
Mhm.
duds. To
Mhm.
me, I've always told people, to me, consistency is
Mhm.
always my favorite.
Mhm.
I don't want someone that could give me one day 20 and then 2 weeks 2 and 3. I mean, and
Yep.
or 0 points. Like
Yep.
that is the worst thing to happen to you in the playoffs or any matchup.
Mhm.
Most than likely, you're gonna lose that matchup.
Unless
Um,
unless you're cherry picking matchups and it's like you predicted that was the one he'd blow up because of X, Y, and Z
right.
conditions.
Again, so you're trying to get someone that, hey, you know what? Who can give me 12 points, 13 points,
Mhm.
maybe 15? And that is really
Yep.
good for a flex for someone
Yep.
that you picked up, put in.
Yep.
That more than likely is going to win you a playoff match,
Yep.
a close one when you're facing nothing but playoff teams, good teams moving forward.
Yep. And I'll bring up a personal then start sit for me for tight end. I'm between Noah Fant and I just picked up Trey Burton. Okay, and I have to start one of the two because Mark Andrews is still out with COVID, so he's not going to be available for me this week.
Okay.
And last week, we know how bad um we know how bad that offense was with the Broncos. They had no quarterback. Hinton only had one completed pass.
Lock is back. Lock
Lock
is
is
back.
back. So it comes down to Burton, who scored 10.5 in week 11 in 1 point PPR, and he scored 13.2 in week 12. He had 3 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. He's facing Houston this week, which we don't expect to be a really solid team
Right.
defensively, especially with them missing another
They've gotten
player in
better
the
with the new
secondary.
coach. We can't say that.
True, but they just lost
He's
Roby.
more defensive minded, but yeah, they did get better. But again, um,
But they just lost their top cornerback, is what
yeah,
I'm saying. So that
that's
kind of hurts you a lot. Like,
yeah, that's gonna hurt a lot.
So that's what I'm saying. This might be a matchup where I might be able to take Burton but then
I
again,
would go. I would go with Burton. I wouldn't. You
Fant is
can't trust that
facing Kansas
Denver. You
City,
can't trust that Denver offense.
but they're facing Kansas City. You know what that means? More than likely, you're going to be blown out in passing. So
You know what the funny thing is for me
hmm,
is that team's morale
hmm,
from what happened last week. A lot of people, don't think that. I'm always someone, I just watch football for fun. I love football. So
that's
when
next week. You
that
watch
team,
football for money too. Don't
oh
lie.
yeah, no, 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 of course. But what I'm
That's
saying to
next
you
week.
is, before all this, that's what I loved, right? So I'm thinking that team must be pissed at all three quarterbacks
Mhm,
that put them in that predicament
mhm,
to have that disaster of a game with the New Orleans. Like that was the quarterback's fault. All three of them. That was their fault. They put their teammates in a really bad position. So that team's morale, are they even they're going to be like, oh, we're going to protect Luck. Not that they will ever not protect. What I'm saying to you is that same energy, that same, hey, this is our guy. He'll never do. We protect him. He's our own.
Well, the one thing I have to say about that is this: in the NFL, your tape is your resume. So for a lot of these guys, it hurts them.
Saying, but they're going to play. I never said they're not going to. But what I'm saying to you is, there is a difference when you go out there and you know that's your guy. This is the guy that. Okay, well, I mean, I'm going to play hard, but just for me. But it's not the same. It's not that same.
I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see what the Broncos do going forward, if they do keep Locke, or do they actually get maybe another quarterback to take over. Maybe they trade for Sam Darnold. Maybe they draft a quarterback. It's supposed to be a bunch of quarterbacks coming out this year that are really good, other than Fields and Lawrence. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that draft plays out. But until then, I would say it's interesting to see what Locke is going to do. Locke was hurt a bit. So not only did he have COVID, or I think he was hurt and then everyone else got COVID. But you said Locke is back, which I think means that in a game versus Kansas City where they could be down big early, I think that Locke and Fant could possibly do some scoring, where Burton is a touchdown upside. So I don't know. I might leave Fant in, but I think that's an interesting toss-up. You would go Burton?
Yeah, I would go with Trent.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to bring up. Another player that I'm really watching right now is going to be Sammy Watkins from the Kansas City. He's owned in about 56% of leagues, so he's almost about half owned. But going forward, I think that he's third on the team in targets. Right? It was Tyreek Hill, it's Kelsey, and then it's Watkins as far as targets go. And we know it's a high-powered offense there in Kansas City.
Right.
He is a boomer bust type player because of that inconsistency of who gets the targets and how it all breaks down. But overall, he is a pretty safe play. When he was originally in, he scored 21, 2, and this is again 1 point PPR here, 21, 2, 13, 6, 10. Then he was out for a long time, and then he scored 7 in his last game. He has Denver this week, but after that, he has Miami, New Orleans, and Atlanta. So I definitely think, at least for a speculative hold for this week, he's someone to pick up and look at. I'm debating possibly playing him this week just because he does have a pretty decent matchup there, and there's a good possibility that he scores, or at the very worst, he's going to get you about 5-6 points just because of his targets with Mahomes. So
I mean, Watkins was the number 2, right behind Hill.
Not 3.
Yeah,
number 2 wide receiver.
I'm talking about wide receivers.
Yeah.
Not including Kelsey.
Yeah.
But he was the number 2 wide receiver, right? In a high-powered offense.
Yep.
I don't think that's a bad play. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said the only reason why I bring Kelsey there is because right now for receiving yardage in the NFL, number 1 is Tyreek Hill and number 2 is Travis Kelsey. So it's like those guys right now are playing like number 1 and number 2 wide receiver.
And I get that point. What I'm saying is he is the number 2 wide receiver, right?
On the field, he gets a ton of burn because of that.
Yes, that's what I mean. So he's always going to be on the field. Your 1 and 2 receivers are always going to usually be on the field.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
In a high-powered offense, to me, that's not a bad hold, not a bad start for this week. If you have to, there's not that more. I mean, there's more receivers that you probably start over him, but it's not like, hey, that's a bad start at all. He can easily double digits.
Yep.
And again, the teams that you face, Kansas City, it's not like they're just going out. They're in close games. They're always playing.
Their defense
to me, they're the best team. Yes. But it's not like that it's a blowout and all of a sudden they, doesn't play for a whole quarter.
The reason why they're the best team is because it's like when the Warriors were playing back in the day with Steph Curry and all the boys.
Right.
They're the best team because nobody could stop them. Offensively, they're a juggernaut. They get 1 or 2 stops, you're dead because they will score every possession, whether it's a field goal or touchdown.
And they can score at
will. I think when you were watching the game between Tampa Bay and the Bucks, it was amazing to see how he would take the step back and he would get Hill going down for those big plays at least twice early on. Like it was like a 3rd and 10, I think, that they scored on one of the plays. It's really insane how literally 3rd down and whatever yardage, and they can literally not even get a first down, but they can get a touchdown on literally any play.
That happens when you have the best quarterback in the NFL, and then you have the best, or you want to say second best, I don't know, best coach, second best because of Belichick, but coach in the NFL, Andy Reid.
That's actually a good question right now. Who do you have as coach of the year right now? Because I see a lot of people talking. They're talking about Tomlin. They're talking about there's another guy here. Not the guy from the 49ers, the guy from Seattle. Pete Carroll. There's a talk of these guys winning, NFL or Sean Payton. But I think that, other than Tomlin, I think Andy Reid has to be considered as the guy. I don't know why he doesn't get enough love.
Because he has Patrick Mahomes. It's
a gift and a curse, because guess what? They put a great team around him, even with Hill down or Kelsey down. They have weapons and options because you have Watkins. Even when Robinson and McCole Hardman, they have guys that are really explosive players that you can plug in even when Hill is out. I mean, the one difference is that Hill is definitely a step above all of them, because I think we saw Hardman drop a pass that was nice and easy that would have went to the house last week,
right?
And stuff like that. But I think that's something definitely to be interesting to see how everything plays out, especially for the rest of the season too, because like Anthony Lynn, like David Oliver is saying, is at the bottom of the list, and I think that's why some people don't trust Herbert in a matchup today versus New England
because of the coach of himself. Yeah, Lynn has been pretty bad. I think they had a stat where they were leading like 16 points and they lost like 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, I think last week we saw them take. I think it was in the first half and in the second half. They took timeouts at weird times for weird things that just literally killed their ammunition essentially.
I forgot the announcer. He pointed it out. He said, "I don't want to keep harping on it or think I'm picking on Lynn, but these are the timeouts that just don't make sense. How can you call this timeout here? Everything should have been set up already."
Yeah, and that more than anything, because we can understand with some of the injuries that they have. You're not having Derwin James, who's one of the best safeties in the game, young kid, plays out there for San Diego. Not having him definitely hurts. But I think that just looking at what they have as talent wise, you have Keenan Allen, who's now in a contract year. You have Mike Williams. You have weapons. You have a team, but I don't think he's doing enough with it. I think they should be a lot better.
Lynn is more than likely gone.
That's right. 4 straight losses, and you blew a 21-point lead versus New Orleans.
It's like I said. Lynn is gone. Mm-hmm. They have Herbert. They know what they have in Herbert.
Yeah,
and they're like, hey, well, who can we get?
Yeah,
I'm sure we talked about it. The KC offensive coordinator, he's going to get a look. I think they need someone.
I think the KC offensive coordinator in the Chargers would be so cruel. Like the man just won the championship with the team in your division, and then you go to your biggest division rival with the young quarterback to go to the Jets, get out of the division, see each other in the playoffs, maybe.
If they think, hey, this is what he does with Mahomes.
Yeah,
why not Herbert? And like you said, they got weapons. That would be a really good fit there.
Like you said, they like to go on the cheap list. So I do think that seeing them probably get a college quarterback probably is going to be what the wave. But will they be able to get the right guy? Because some of these college guys, I think they're translating a lot better to the NFL than we had expected them to. I think one guy that we could speak to with that is Matt Rule with the Panthers. I think they're playing a lot better than I anticipated, because you haven't had Christian McCaffrey for most of the year. You're playing Teddy Bridgewater, who a lot of people were like, why are you going out and getting Teddy Bridgewater over Cam Newton? What's going on here? You lost Luke Kuechly on defense. You Thomas Davis is gone. So you also lost a lot of the heart that you had on defense. And they really played pretty good. They're an outside shot at a playoffs coming back into week 13, but they're not out of it. And I think that they're an interesting team, especially with McCaffrey coming back now, to see what he could do, because it looks like that Mike Davis has kind of tapped the tank and he's running on empty. He kind of used up everything he had.
I think they I mean, again, the good thing is Mike Davis does get a bye.
Yep.
So in case CMC is not back,
Davis
would be hopefully ready for that first playoff matchup.
I think the most wonderful thing and the news and joy to all us Christian McCaffrey owners who've had to suffer through one of the worst seasons to have the number one pick. We said that he was back at practice last week. So he had some pads on, he was getting a little bit of action. Then they ruled him out. Okay. And then they had the bye week. I think that was the best thing that we could have had happen as McCaffrey owners. I'd rather him take an extra 2 weeks to get right and come back for that first week of the playoffs for fantasy football, but also because of that win that they had, they're in a position now where they might have a shot at the playoffs. Like, let's see, I can pull up those standings real quick because that I think that's also interesting things to watch as well when you're playing fantasy football. Is you have to see how the standings go, because if
another one is, I'm sorry, I may cut you off, but another one, like you just said, is Mixon.
Yes,
they're thinking about whether, hey,
do we shut him down?
There's no more Burrow. What are we gonna do?
Yep.
Mixon is not ready still, and to me, they lose again, which more than likely they are. Mixon's not playing this week. Are they even going to bring Mixon back? Now, the coach did come out and say, I think he came out and said, no, we have 2 weeks to see if Mixon can come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he didn't say he's putting him on the shelf, but again, that's coach. He's never going to come out right now and say, hey, yeah, Mixon's done for the year. He's not going to do that. But that is something to keep an eye out. People that have Giovanni Bernard, he might be the guy moving forward, right? Because there's no one else. Giovanni Bernard got most of the burn.
And Samaj A.P. Ryan has been getting a lot of the burn. Not the burn, but like he's the next guy on the list. But
yeah,
someone that you don't even trust. I think that's a situation where hopefully they just say, hey, Mixon, we're paying you. Let's just get a decent product out there. If you're ready to go, let's put you out there. Hopefully it's nothing. Because originally he was week to week. That's what you're hoping for. But
if you're the owner of Bernard, you're hoping.
He was week to week for 3 weeks, and then they put him on IR. So it's like I have.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even know if he wants to come back. Like, I have no idea.
One thing that I'm looking at for the playoff thing, the Ravens are 6-5. The Vegas is 6-5. Let me pull this up here because this is interesting stuff to know for your fantasy football teams. So we look at Indiana, we look at Vegas, Baltimore. All these guys are playing for their playoff lives, right? So they're going to be playing all their best players. They're going to play every single week to win.
Right. That's what you do really have to look at sometimes.
And then when you're looking at some of these guys like Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Jets, you have to start figuring out which of the young guys are they going to start trying to play out, which now is going to get a much bigger target share than they were getting earlier on the year. And I think those are players that you start looking at. Like for the Jets wanted to get P. Ryan in there. P. Ryan got out. So now Gore has a full opportunity. You snag him up because going forward, even though he hasn't been great for the beginning of the year, he's someone that you could have. Okay, going down here, Arizona is in it. Minnesota's in it. Minnesota's playing real tough right now. So we're sitting back. We're like, maybe is Madison a good player to hold? He just went out with injury. Cook is banged up. You have to look at who possibly you can get at that running back position in Minnesota, because both these running backs right now, Kubiak was mentioning that Dalvin Cook is a little banged up. Last week he went out with an injury. We know Dalvin Cook is somewhat of an injury-prone player. I think that, seeing I don't really know who's backing up Madison. I have to look at that, but getting that guy and holding on to him for a little bit may be an interesting play, because if Minnesota doesn't have their main running back going through a playoff stretch where they need to play those games and need to win those games, maybe getting a guy like that and starting him will be an interesting play, and he might get an opportunity to score a couple of touchdowns and be really relevant. So those are things that I'm looking at. Also, if we look right here, we have the what is this? The NFC East right here, 4-7. We got 4-7. We got 3-7 and 3-8. So this is a tight race here. That's
a good thing about that division. The only good thing for fantasy, you have Washington, Giants, and Eagles are competing for the rest of the year.
Yep. Even though they're sucking. Same thing with the Cowboys. Even though they're all sucking, they're still competing.
Same thing with the Cowboys. You're right. You're absolutely right. So you got all 5 teams.
Easy breezy,
it doesn't work like that, where all 5 teams are going to be competing hard, trying to win every game. Getting that division, because that's the only way to get into the playoffs there. And again, that people have to understand when you're doing, you have to look at that, especially if you're planning to pick up players. Hey, who are they going to start? Who are they not going to? Like Steve said, younger players. Like
Yep.
if we're out of the playoffs, let's just start our young guys,
Yep.
see what we have.
Yep.
And
Especially as you get into weeks 15, 16, 17.
right.
You're going to see seeing a lot more of that. I think this is a good question here. Julio Jones or Lazard. Julio Jones is facing the Saints, which did a number on him the last time they played him. I know he's been dealing with injuries, but he is fully active this week. And Devontae Adams is still there in
Green Bay, and Green Bay faces
and MVS
Monday, right?
What happened?
Who does Green Bay face?
They're facing Philly.
Philly.
And the one thing also about it is that even with Philly, the defense it really got burned last week by Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf went off against Slayton.
Right.
Darius Slay. They went off on him, and I think the other thing that we have to look at is that with Lazard, MVS was getting a lot of burn last week, so he really hasn't carved out that role of being the number 2 guy for Aaron Rodgers yet.
He did catch his touchdown last week, though, right?
We could pull up their exact stats here, but I know that MVS has been still.
No, he's still been making noise.
So, and I think that's what scares me a little bit about Lazard. Let me just pull this up.
I mean, the funny part is I like Lazard coming in to the season. I'm just saying.
Same here. He had 4 catches for 23 yards and a touchdown. So he did catch the touchdown.
That's not, that touchdown saved him.
Yeah, it's literally that touchdown saved him versus Julio Jones, which when healthy, he is, he's matchup proof.
Again, I mean, I'm probably if I have Julio Jones, I'm going Julio.
Yeah, especially because you invested a lot of capital into Julio Jones.
Yeah, and just the offense there is still, definitely something I would not sneeze at. That you still have Matt Ryan. Mm-hmm. You have Gurley back. You have Ridley. Mm-hmm. You have Hurst. I mean, again, they have a bunch of weapons, which again you would think sometimes, oh no, that's bad for Julio, but no, I think Julio not being healthy, they're not going to look at him as much. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his catches. He can get you a touchdown. To me, definitely starting Julio Jones over Lazard.
And I think this sets up or brings to mind for me another interesting question when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers. Now, for the 49ers, they have Deebo Samuel, who finally came back last week, and he looked like Deebo Samuel. Looks like they gave him enough time for him to come back, and he's fully healthy and fully active. But now you have Brandon Ayuk, who wasn't active last week, coming back this week. Okay, and you don't have their main starting quarterback, so it's not Jimmy G. We're still rolling with Nick Mullins. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him and how that target distribution goes. I'm seeing a lot of people just debating if they start Deebo or if they start Ayuk. I think both players have a lot of upside, and I think San Francisco, they're one game out of the playoffs, and they're facing their divisional teams coming up and going forward. So there's a very good chance that San Francisco can make the playoffs, and they're making that playoff push. So I expect them to go a lot to these wide receivers still. I think Ayuk and PPR is very interesting. I think Deebo in regular leagues is still very interesting because they like to get the ball in their hands from end around to design runs.
Yeah, I would go with probably Deebo if it was up to me.
I think Ayuk is really solid though. Like he was starting to really build a rapport with the backup quarterback as well. So I if it wasn't for the COVID taking him out of the last couple of games, he was someone that I was consistently relying upon.
But when Ayuk was doing that, was Samuel was hurt?
Deebo was out for most of these games.
Most of the time. That's what I do remember too. Mm-hmm. When Ayuk was getting the burn, Deebo was out. So I think that did a lot. That had a lot to do.
But if you look at his last 3 games, though, he in his game versus New Orleans, he had 14 targets for 7 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. In the game versus Seattle, he had 8 targets for 91 yards and a receiving touchdown. And then the game before that, he had 6 targets for 115 yards. So this guy, once he gets the targets, he does the work. And I do think that there's already a chemistry built up there where Deebo hasn't been there with the quarterback for a while. So Deebo hasn't been able to practice or play. So he hasn't been able to build up that rhythm.
And what was Deebo Samuel's last week's stats?
Deebo Samuel last week he had a good week. But there was also the beautiful thing, or not the beautiful thing, but George Kittle is out, which lends you to get more targets just in general for the offense. So it's not the same situation as it used to be. But last week, Deebo Samuels had 13 targets for 11 catches and 133 yards. Okay, so and the beautiful thing about that is that they were playing a Jalen Ramsey led Rams secondary.
Yeah.
So that just leads me to believe that even with a Nick Mullins, these two guys who, I mean, Deebo Samuel right now, he's up 23%, he's up to 80% rostered. So Deebo Samuel, obviously, he's a guy that everyone in the fantasy community loves, and he really is someone that they trust. So, he's getting that burn. But another guy that, like I said, to look at based off his stats, Ayuk, he's sitting at 73% owned, so he's also getting a lot of burn. I think that we saw Mo start back last week, and he looked like himself. He didn't really look like he had any limitations or didn't look like he lost a step or anything like that. And I think the 49ers are going to be a team that could rumble their way to the playoffs. I think that Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in the league, and if he does get his team to the playoffs, you might have to look at him for coach of the year. Because, I mean, he's had a ragtag team for this whole he hasn't had Debo. He's lost Ayuk. He lost his quarterback. He lost, what is it, Kittle?
Yeah, he's not getting coach of the year. Stop.
If he gets them to the playoffs?
I don't think they're getting to the playoffs. I don't think. Well, I think what you saw last week was just Rams getting,
the Rams.
Okay. They slept on San Francisco. They were.
Let's put it like this.
Feeling themselves to a little too much.
The Rams are 7-4, right? So they're locked into a playoff spot. They're only 2 wins ahead of San Francisco. San Francisco is only 1 game behind Arizona, who has the last playoff spot. So they're technically 1 game out of the playoffs. Tampa Bay, I don't think anyone has trust or faith in them, and there's a possibility that this 2-game losing streak they have can continue. Okay, New Orleans right now is the class of the division, and so is Seattle. Seattle has a pretty decent schedule going forward, so I expect them to do pretty well. But they do have a matchup with San Francisco there. Now, I don't think San Francisco will be able to catch Seattle, but I do think that they'll be able to catch Arizona at the very least and take that last final playoff spot.
Yeah,
and
I think Minnesota gets it over San Francisco. I think San Francisco, again, what you saw yesterday, Mullins is not going to do that moving forward every week. That's just not.
Well, I mean, let's put it like this. So this week you have the Rams facing Arizona. So one of these two teams is definitely going to be taking an L.
Yeah.
Right. And then no one thinks that Chicago is going to win, right?
Chicago?
Yeah, no, Chicago Bears. I don't think the Chicago Bears have a shot to do anything, right? And then we're looking at Minnesota, and who's Minnesota playing this week? They're playing the I know they're not playing a good team. They're placing Jacksonville. So Minnesota should get the win. And then if San Francisco is playing Buffalo,
which
is a tough matchup.
I think Buffalo's going to win.
Yeah, I think that's a tough matchup. That's a tough one to predict.
I think I'm predicting Buffalo.
Well, let's
win that game. I think their defense is good. I think their offense is way better than San Francisco's. I'll say way better, but I think their quarterback is way better than they're the way better quarterback than.
How about this though? Last week versus a bad San Diego Chargers team, they went to the wire. It wasn't like.
No, I get it, but again, I'm seeing what I'm seeing all season long.
Yeah,
I trust Buffalo way more than I trust San Francisco to come in and win that Monday night game. That's just me.
Sure.
I believe Allen, more than I believe in Mullins.
But I do say this. I believe in Shanahan, and I do like that you have 3 key players from your team, or 4, I should say, coming back. You have Tevin Coleman, you have Mostart, you have Ayuk, you have Debo. These are all guys that you haven't had all year, and these are all playmakers. Every single one of them are a playmaker. From Tevin Coleman having his flashes to Mostart being a home run hitter in the backfield to having Debo and Ayuk, who both went there in there putting up numbers. Now to have all 3 of them versus just at max.
No, I get it, but you're telling me Nick Mullins is the quarterback, and I'm sorry, this is just NFL team. You can tell me all the players you have, but you have Nick Mullins going there. You tell me that he's going to play like he did against the Rams. I don't see that happening.
Which defense do you think is better?
Like that. I see him losing against Buffalo. They lose against Buffalo. Minnesota wins. That's already what? How many games ahead now?
That would be but basically here it would be.
I mean, you're telling me San Francisco has to win this week. This is a must win for San. Every
No.
game moving forward is a must win for San Francisco.
Well, here's the thing.
That's what you're basically saying.
No, they're one game behind Arizona, but Arizona's facing the Rams.
Okay.
Right. So there's a good chance that Arizona takes that L. Even if Minnesota takes the win, they would only be one game back because Minnesota would be at 6-6, Arizona would be at 6-6, and then San Francisco would be at 5-7. So there'd be one game behind.
That's them losing this week.
That's what San Francisco losing, Arizona losing, and Minnesota winning. So there's still only one game back.
Who's the next? What's the next game?
And then San Francisco going forward, I know that they have a pretty decent schedule. So San Francisco going forward, they have Washington in week 14,
which they
have Dallas in week 15,
which they will win.
And they have Arizona week 16, which will be basically for the playoffs.
That's probably going to determine everything. Again, I could see them losing this week. I could see them losing against Washington.
And then the last one that they're going to
play. And if Arizona wins this week, then it's a problem.
And then if they lose this week, then they would be
if they win
behind the Rams.
If Arizona wins and San Francisco loses, now it becomes a problem.
Well, then they're 2 games back. Yeah.
Then they have to win out, basically.
Yep. But the good thing for them is they also have a game versus Seattle at the end of the season.
Cool.
With the 49ers. So that'll be a big bonus for them going forward. Because if they go on a little bit of a winning streak,
I'm not trusting McMullins to give me 3 straight wins against any of those teams. Any of those teams they can lose. Any of those teams they go. Maybe not Dallas, and still Dallas could probably beat them.
And then
any of those teams they could lose.
I don't know what
they're going to lose this to me. They're going to lose to Buffalo. Arizona, the way they've been looking, it really Murray's another thing people look at. People who have Murray, like myself, you have Murray.
Yep.
That shoulder, he's not, it's not so much that he's not throwing. If you look, he's not running as much. Where before, hey, I'm in trouble. Boom, I'm gone. Let me get 25 yards easily.
He finally got the shot that woke him up.
That has cut down in half now. Now I think he went from 10 runs a game to now 5. Like that's dramatically last 2 weeks. Boom. That's something Murray.
Now, do you think that also has to do something with the defenses that he faced? I mean, if we look at their last,
I've been seeing ever since the shoulder, ever since he got hurt in that shoulder.
He's been playing Seattle. Seattle's a divisional matchup, so divisional matchups always seem to play better. They have more intel on you.
But even though didn't they face Seattle before? Didn't he run for a lot? To me, Murray's just someone that runs when he knows he has the opportunity. He's going to get those 20 yards.
Yeah,
for him, 15, 20 yards is nothing.
Yep. But New England is a tough defense to measure things against because New England has one of the smartest defensive coaches in the game.
Oh no, yeah, but to me again, it goes back to that shoulder. Ever since that shoulder that he got landed on, to me,
I think this game versus the Rams is going to be a really good game to watch. Just because one, it's going to see who's legit for this playoff spot because Rams and Cardinals both have this playoff spots right now. They're 3 teams from the NFC West have a playoff spot, and they're gonna start having to play each other and start beat on each other, and that's gonna really determine some playoff matchups. Like you said, it might give Minnesota a chance to sneak in there because Arizona is gonna have to face a couple of these tough teams in their division to end their season. They're also playing. So after they face the Rams, they have the Giants. In week 14, which is the first week of the playoffs, they have Philly and San Francisco. So it'll be interesting. They should be able to beat Philly. San Francisco will get their shot versus them to get their win back. The Rams game and the Giants game is going to be huge because, maybe the Giants pull this one off too. I don't know. It's possible.
The Giants against Seattle?
No, Giants versus Cardinals next week.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to win. For the Giants to win this division, they have to get an upset here. They have to get an upset with either Seattle, Arizona, or Baltimore, which to me is the most winnable game.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's the most winnable.
Yeah.
I just don't trust Baltimore how they've been playing. Arizona, again, depending on what Murray's been happening, what happens this game, that is also maybe a winnable game. I don't see them beating Seattle this week, even though Seattle has, I'm not going to say they've looked the elite. They haven't. But again, Russell Wilson is just gonna be too much for Giants.
Now here's the doomsday
and Cole Coy and McCoy.
I will say this: I don't think this is a week where I'm expecting too much from DK Metcalf. Not like last week. I think that James Bradbury has been a really solid sign for the Giants at cornerback, and he's done really well against some of these top flight matchups. So I'm not really expecting DK Metcalf to really go off as much, and I am expecting a little bit more out of Lockett today, just based on the way schematically things would work out. This would be more of a Lockett game, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how they use Carson because the Giants defense has actually been pretty decent against the run. And I know Pete Carroll said he wants to stop letting Russ cook. He wants to cut Russ that down a little bit because again, like you said with Kyler Murray, you take a couple of those shots and all of a sudden you're not the same player. And guess what? The playoffs is right around the corner, and now it's a situation where it's like, all right, we have a good spot. We have an 8-3 record, more than likely. Where we have a 2-game cushion over the final spot.
Seattle has that luxury.
Yep.
Arizona doesn't. They have to. Murray has to be on full.
Yep.
Full force. But again.
Yep. And this game versus the Rams, he has to let it all rip. This is like a playoff game for the Cardinals.
No, if they win, they secure themselves up. Again, we all know secure a spot to the playoffs, but this is a big win if they get it. This is against the Rams. It shows that, hey, we lost a couple of times, but look, we bounced back. We beat the Rams. That's a big win. All of a sudden, now they're in the race for the division again. Okay, a lot of things happen with this, but I think we touched a lot of subjects today.
Yep. I think it's definitely something that going forward, like we said, the playoffs are right around the corner. So all of these things are what we're going to have to watch and gear up for as we really get going. I think things should be pretty fun this week for most people because let's face it, you win or go home, right? Or get that bye or get ready to play. So it's going to be interesting. So I want to thank everyone for coming by. Don't forget to give us a like, a share, subscribe to the channel so we make sure we get you the most up-to-date information. We have coming up, we're going to be releasing it later this afternoon, a fantasy basketball, 3 things that you need to know. It'll be coming to you live on YouTube. So you'll be able to check that out and get going. We're going to start doing a couple of those live drafts coming up and mock drafts for fantasy basketball. We did one on Hammer's house yesterday. We got a pretty good response to that one, so we're going to do a couple over here and just touch base on some of the fantasy basketball stuff we have going on. And I think Ricky was saying that we were going to do something about a recap of that fight last night with Spence and Garcia. So that'll be something to look forward to as well, because we know we have a lot of fight fans on the docket. So we want to thank everyone for everything, all the love, all the questions, all the support. We look forward to helping you guys do well in your playoffs and giving you all the up-to-date information you guys need to know to make the appropriate decisions for your teams. So I want to thank you guys very much and have a wonderful Sunday.
Yeah, thanks a lot for viewing. Take care, man.